modular. Any questions on this particular slide? What we did then when we took the numbers that we received from all of these, the information in the packages that we received, we did a look at the numbers that we received from the vendors, what our original estimates are, and one of those was an independent estimating contractor out of San Francisco, which is known as Sailor, did preliminary building estimates on these. And then we compared all of the different vendors to ensure that, first of all, the overall gross square footages, which includes all of the site adaptive work outside the building envelope, to make sure that we were consistent and to make sure the numbers were not skewed. And again, the Taber packages came out consistently better than some of the other vendors. And again, one of the things on the Sailor was not included on the overall gross square footage. They just gave us a building square footage number, and we'll cover that slide next. Any questions? What we had really good numbers on was the building square footage, and the number of reasons why we had this, again, was the Sailor. In 2010, Sailor gave us an estimate on the 960 square foot classroom. That estimate did not include some of the things that we have implemented into our building. This is our building, the smart building, the solar, and some of the other improvements, some of the additional things that we have added into the building since Sailor has taken that. The number that we have on there for Sailor is escalated at the standard rate that we've been using at the 3.5. So when we looked at all of these numbers, the Taber number again came in at $321, which is what we consider a very good number for the actual classroom building square footage. And again, the last column is the difference between the Sailor estimate and the engineer's estimate. The reason why we're seeing the 1440 is this is a new building. We did not have any baseline data on that, so that was a kindergarten building. Any questions on this? At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Pete.
This is a slide that I borrowed from my last fall's presentation when I was providing the board with an update on Measure C. And I provided this to try and explain the difference between how we budget things. When we were tasked with the job of putting together the project book, the blueprint for 2002 Measure C, we started off with, as Tim said, a lot of what we call RCCs, our raw construction costs. What does it cost to build a building? What does it cost to install a door? What does it cost to build a performing arts center of so many square feet? And that's what travels in the beginning part of the budget. That's our starting point. But when we build a budget, we know there's other costs that we need to account for. There's other contingencies. There's things we need to look for when we prepare the larger budget for the larger bond, the $348 million bond. So when we develop the full program budget, the one we share with the oversight committee, we take the estimated raw contingency and the estimated raw construction costs. We add a change order contingency allowance. Ms. Oakes asked about that at the last board meeting. We add an escalation variable, and traditionally the way this works in construction management is you pick a point midway through active construction, and you deal with a lot of trades unions, and you deal with a lot of soothsayers and crystal ball people and financial people, and find out over the course of the next, in our case, 4.5 years, what does it look like inflation's going to look like? What can we anticipate in terms of escalation through the construction cycle? How is our dollar going to deteriorate? So we add an escalation variable to all the raw cost data. We then add a 5% design program contingency for things that come up. A lot of times as you go through a multi-year program, you find out you need another classroom, you need another prep room, you find out that you have roofs that prematurely fail, you have to add that. So we add a contingency for that, knowing that that's going to happen. And then finally we add soft costs, a soft cost allowance, which is your architect, your construction management fees, your inspector of record fees, your testing and inspection, all those sort of costs, your fees to DSA. We add all that. All that together makes a full program cost. Those are the costs we have to identify in the program because we know we need to be prepared to have that money on hand if we're going to launch that project. When we come to the board with a project, and I cite the budget is X on this on my docket, I bring a working budget. And what our working budget is, the raw cost, raw cost to construct the building, the change order contingency, and the soft cost. I do not bring a budget to the board that includes the escalator or the change order contingency. That sits in a line, that's kind of, for lack of a better word, rainy day money, contingency money that if we need later on, we can access later, but we don't count that as part of our working budget. In this case, the full program budget for the classrooms and the science centers, this is fully loaded, is $28,098,412.17. That is accounted for in our financial program budget. That is all the money that is currently dedicated to make these 24 classrooms and 5 science buildings happen. The working budget, once again, that is absent the design contingency or the variable, is $22,000. The bid we are bringing tonight with the board, with the 3% contingency included, baked into that number, is $17,612,149. The classroom raw construction costs that we shared in the initial 2010 project plan, the cost was $415,673.36. That's the cost that we had budgeted for 23 of the classrooms. There is one specialized classroom, a 1440 square foot classroom that is going out at Mont Diablo Elementary. The cost for that one classroom, the raw construction cost, is $518,410. The revised costs, and I'll explain this in a little bit, for the middle science classrooms, which is 2 1440 classrooms and a 400 square foot prep room, is $1,400,000. In the original project book, we had planned for an 11,020 square foot building with a 300 square foot prep room. Talking to staff and others, we felt that that was inadequate spatially, so we bumped it up. So the revised budget is $1,400,000. So if you were just to take, I see a confused look. Okay. So if you were just to take the raw construction cost and add only the change order allowance, and don't add the soft cost, that alone is $18 million that we've got sitting in the account. That is, with a recommended bid of $17 million, we're still $1 million under that, and that doesn't even include soft costs. So I just want to assure the board that we are significantly under the budget that has been allocated in the original 2002 plan. Am I making any sense? Okay, all right. But I mean, that's the level of comfort and confidence that we are bringing to the board, that I wanted to show you, not only in terms of the bid relative to the other bids, but this bid relative to the plan we put forth in March or April of 2010. We're welcome any questions.
Okay, one question people have asked me is why, less than 2 years ago, we went through a school closure process, and then we've also talked about continued declining enrollment. So could you just briefly share some of the rationale for the expansion of classrooms and how that balances?
There's a mixture here, Mr. Lawrence. Most of the classrooms you see here are an extension of the commitment we made in the 2002 Measure C, which was to replace obsolete and decrepit portables. So the lion's share of the buildings you see here are simply replacing existing buildings, non-efficient